All right, so we are back for a really juicy, exciting episode about, well, we were just talking about it, becoming a vibrational match to abundance, to your bliss, to your path. I mean, there's so many, who knows what we're going to go with this topic today. But we have Lindsay Schroeder. She supports service-based entrepreneurs like myself, like many of you, to help develop their intuition and up level, align their mindset and up level their businesses. I saw something about being with your company is called R&R. Is that correct?
Yeah, the name of my brand is Hour and R, and I love it. Everybody's always like, "What is this?" And I love
Yeah.
the fact that like it's a meditation in and of itself. Like you cannot rush through it. You cannot like breeze past it. You have to like take a moment and say Hour and R, and it just like gets you in that vibration of like being present for a moment. And it's really representative of our divine feminine because this is a shared thing, like in our collective, regardless of whether you're female identifying or male identifying, like we share this powerful vibration of the divine feminine. And as we're moving into this new collective awareness, like activating and allowing our divine feminine to lead, to magnetize instead of hustle, I'm all about that. So, our divine feminine, and then we are divine feminine, actually owning that, identifying that, like claiming that we are divine feminine and allowing that to express forward. It's kind of the baseline and the foundation behind my entire business, that everything I'm teaching and doing comes back to this place of magnetism instead of reaching, forcing, hustling, pushing, making it happen the way that a lot of us were taught through the masculine energies.
Yes. Very familiar with that dynamic and the balance between the two. Um, And I love that. It's a and what I love about that, the main thing that comes to me is how feels community based rather than I and mine. It is our, which is really the theme of the new era is becoming more interdependent, not only with spirit, which I have some mastery around, it's like knowing when it's time to launch something, knowing when it's time to post, knowing when, like as I was reading through your work, like I have some mastery around that. Um, and I see that you do like some inner work around the subconscious beliefs because I think that shadow work piece seems to be the block with a lot of my clients and even myself, even after doing 20 years of somatic work and journey work, interpersonal work, traveling to ashrams in Peru and working with medicine, plant medicine, there's still some like core things that keep me, I know personally, from launching into that next place, that next expansion. But I feel ready for it, and that's why I called you in, or spirit called you in.
I mean, if you think about it, 0 to 7 for all of us is just a time of absorption. And so we are like laying the foundation to this programming. And I'm sure if we got someone who is super technical and super snazzy and totally could explain like how a computer operates, that foundational piece of your operating system, you can upgrade as much as you want. But if you're not changing that foundational piece, you can have the most souped up everything and the newest XOS or whatever iOS or whatever programming you want, and it's only going to go so far. And so going back to that deeply embedded, especially 0 to 7 programming that we've been given that we weren't even conscious of and that we didn't play an active role in. If we think about the things like, ooh, maybe the things we imprinted in our 20s or, maybe even 15 or 17, there was some conscious awareness to it of like, oh, I kind of remember that. Or like, yeah, I could see how I took that experience and turned it into this belief. But 0 to 7, we had no clue. Most of us weren't active in that space. We were just a sponge absorbing. And so doing this beautiful reprogramming of the subconscious work allows you to shift the foundation. And so much of our 3D experience is based off of our subconscious, like sometimes up to 98% of it, guys. So you can be doing all of these beautiful things in the conscious space, but if you're in opposition to your subconscious, you're going 1 step forward, 2 steps back. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And we're playing this like ridiculous hopscotch game with our goals, with our desires, with our dreams, with like the things that we're really putting effort and attention into.
Wow. I can't tell you, but I literally just, well, I can't tell you. I literally was just talking with my therapist about I've just taken 5 steps forward, now I'm 2 steps back. And it's because of the original wounding. Like I'm pretty conscious of what's going on. That 0 to 7, there's that parental abandonment. There is, my father choosing love over caring for his kids. Like there's so many
Same,
programs.
girl.
Yeah.
Same. Absolutely same.
Really? We
Oh
have the
yeah.
same blueprint?
So many of my clients come to me with mom dad trauma because I am the queen of mom dad trauma. Like
Tell me
my
all
dad
about it.
chose
Tell me
women
the story.
over my family all the time, like left us, was like not a great influence in my life. And that's one of the major turning points for me, is like really working through and getting to a place. And this is going to sound insane, guys. Hold your breath, stay with me. I am grateful for my father's abandonment. I am grateful for the low vibration things that my father put me through. I am grateful for the years of aching. I am grateful for the years of insomnia. I'm grateful for the mediators and the therapists and the this and the that, because it gave me everything that I have here and now, because I moved through it, because I did the work to transmute it, because I had to learn and understand and find these tools and like solve these things and like realize that I wasn't broken, but that there's up levels available, and get to a place of gratitude. And that is the reason that I have my business. That is the reason why I call in so many of my soulmate clients. Like I love to help people shift and transmute and alchemize the, can I swear?
Yes, please.
Alchemize the fuck out of mom dad trauma, because it is in those formative years. Like I've had clients who physically have a reaction when people like let go of them because they've been left by a parent. Our bodies remember that, our energy remembers that. We turn that into, every time someone pulls away from me, they're going to leave me forever, because when we were little and we didn't understand that programmed. So like for me, I associated abundance and like self-worth when I was little, when my parents were together, because my Catholic upbringing excommunicated my mother after her divorce, shunned us in school. And so as soon as that started to happen, and then my parents split up, now we're not 2 income household, we're only 1 income household. Little me decided to put them together. That like now that money is dissipating, oh, it's dissipating because my self-worth is dissipating, because I'm no longer worthy, because I'm from a broken family, because my dad didn't choose me. And so I had all of these, and still of course do have like little pieces of it that come up again and again to be healed and transmuted and elevated through. But I had really brought those two things together, that like my worth diminished, and that's why my abundance diminished, even though I had no control over it. I was a child. I didn't do anything wrong. That didn't change my worth because my parents got divorced, but like that was so deeply associated with my money. And so finding abundance practices and working through these types of things and identifying that deeply rooted programming, and specifically working with the subconscious, not just the conscious awareness of going like, oh, my self-worth and my abundance is tied together. Cool. Now I'm going to let it go. That wasn't
Doesn't
enough.
work that way.
It
It
wasn't
doesn't work
enough.
that way.
I was like, that's cute. That was
So
a cute first effort.
before I forget, there's a piece to, in my psychology classes in college, it was like we had to believe that there was something wrong with us in order to not mentally break and die, because your parents have to be sufficient to raise you. And so it's a very common thing to be like, well, there must have been something wrong with me if mom left. There must be something wrong with me if dad left. And, I mean, again, 20 years of therapy, talking, I teach a lot of the same things just in different ways, but the therapy is a knowledge is powerful, but the alchemy is in the walking through it and the wisdom. Now I use, like I said, plant medicines, ancestral healing, subconscious journeying. I have, I'm working with a shaman. I'm obviously a shaman, so I have those abilities. What would you recommend, or what did you, I love hearing about your story. What did you use to alchemize the fuck out of your life?
Lots and lots of plant medicine. I agree with that. I love, love, love plant medicine. Like working with psilocybin, working with ayahuasca, even especially now during the pandemic, working with combo has been so transformational for me. Has changed the way that I've been energetically dealing with COVID and all of the repercussions of that in our world and our space. I work with EFT and NLP. I do a lot of journeying as well, lots and lots of sound healing and sound therapy, tons of subconscious reprogramming, and lots of like inner child shadow work, transmutation, ritual practices, ceremony work. I work with plant medicines, even like cacao and cannabis pretty regularly, and just holding space for the channeled messages to come through of like what a client specifically needs, because it looks so different for each of us. Like, yes, we often are using things like meditation and journaling. EFT, I teach to pretty much every one of my one-on-one clients, but how it comes through, when it comes through, why it comes through, what it's attached to, what we're going into, and how I'm delivering it sounds so different per client, because we're all so unique. And sometimes finding it is a difficult part. Other times it's approaching it the right way. Sometimes it's the language that we're using. Sometimes it's the gentle process, or the like, some of my clients really want to be like kicked off the edge. I'm sure you've seen that picture of ayahuasca just like flicking you off the like, and sometimes it's like her reaching that hand out, being like, do you desire to come with me? Do you choose this? Make this decision. So I adapt all these practices so particularly to the individual, and often to how the trauma was formed, where it was formed. Is it in the physical vessel? Is it in the energetic vessel? Is it in the mind? And do we need to come at it from a rational approach? Do we need to come at it from an etheric approach? A lot of my work is really focused on blending the practical and the energetic. So it's not just woo-woo, but it's also not just practical. That's often why I'm working with a lot of soulpreneurs, a lot of business owners, because it's not just doing this inner work as a fun side hobby thing. It's this deep
Who
realization.
says that it's a fun side hobby? What the
But a lot of people, find crystals and they're like, "Ooh, meditation," or I get a lot of the like, "Oh,
it's
yoga, like, I'm a yogi," and I'm like, okay, but is it like the super like workout masculine yoga? Or are we talking like yoga as a form of practice to connect with oneness? And
right.
so like I do see a lot of people who enjoy it as a fun side hobby of like, oh, I like these pretty rocks and I'm learning about them. That's beautiful. I'm not discrediting that at all. But transmutation and alchemization for the purpose of up-leveling your life, your business, because our inner world is the reflection of our outer world, and vice versa. When you heal the inside, your business changes. When you find something in your business that is a roadblock, that is an issue, that is a ceiling that you're coming up against, it's reflecting an internal programming or a trauma or a wound or a space of grand growth. And it's how we approach that. How do we allow ourselves to step into that and do that work in a way that allows us to enjoy being human more and more and more?
I love that. Yes, I agree. I agree. I guess that brings me to something that's been really irking me lately, which is so I'll be 42 in May. I spent my 20s doing the inner alchemy work, the EFT, the EMDR, like looking at trauma for a decade and making that my main job. That was my main job. I didn't know why, but I knew I needed to do it. Not because it was fun, but because I was in a lot of pain, because I was the first of a generation of so much trauma that it was like I was filled. There was no way I couldn't do the alchemy.
There's no space for the things that you wanted.
I needed that space. And so then I spent 10 years doing trainings, clarity therapy and all these different, women's empowerment, somatic trauma resolution. Like I did all these trainings. Well, what I'm finding now is that the market is very saturated. So I know you're talking about that inner and outer world, the law of attraction. I was finding that, I birth things. When I decided not to have any more children, I'm like, ooh, I don't really like that. That's not my jam. I love my one kid. That's great. She helps me spiritually grow more than any training I've ever taken. But there's still this piece of, having all this alchemy work under my belt. And then there are the trendy women who are like, I just took a weekend of a yoga retreat and I'm a millennial. So I have amazing marketing skills, and they're putting their stuff out there and they're making so much money. And, for a while I was in that flow state and birthing things. So I birthed a sacred dance party before it was even cool. They became cool. I think we were all birthing. A lot of women are vessel birthing a lot of this stuff at the same time. I birthed an academy, the podcast. I don't even remember setting it up. My teacher literally was like, "Hey, you're going to do a podcast." I had a vision, and I was like, "Really?" And then I saw someone else did one, so I signed up for Anchor. Boom! It's all around the world. It has this huge following. Things have come to a pause, mostly because of the ancestral work I've been doing, which is partly because COVID came in, right? And COVID is bat medicine, right? It is. I've met with the bat spirit of COVID two times now and spoke with him during trance and shamanic ceremony. And I mean, it's death and rebirth. He's like, you're not going to be working with me because that's what you do, girl. You do the death and rebirth. Like that's your name is Dawn, new beginnings. Like that's what you do. But it did take my daughter down a really dark path, her first shamanic death and rebirth of almost starving herself to death last year when she couldn't start school. So she couldn't start high school. She had lost all her friends due to a very bad rash on her face. So she was going through her stuff. And so I did put a pause on my business to work on that ancestral lineage. I was the first woman in our line not to abandon their 14-year-old. So I healed everything. And I'm talking, my mom was like, bye. Grandmother put her in an orphanage. Great grandmother put my grandmother in an orphanage. I mean, this was big work and big medicine. And she's doing beautifully. She gained back all her weight. Her heart's beating properly. She is, we just did some big freaking work. So, and yet I'm noticing, again, this is coming back to the sacred work with which I'm doing and seeing that, again, the market is so saturated and I have all this wisdom. Why is it that, and so I'm thinking that my business is at a pause, right? Because I was doing that sacred work and things will birth again. Like it's, like you said, the 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. But what are someone to do? And especially my elders who I see have all this wisdom and none of their work is getting out. Like, that's what I really wanted to hear about. Is like, how do we older folks who have walked the walk, get our medicine out? We've done the inner alchemy work. Of course, there's more, right? It's a spiral, but there's a piece missing. And I just feel like, that. I just have a feeling.
So one of the pieces that I see a lot of times with someone who's been in this industry before it was popular, before it was social media, before this and that, is a resistance to the new wave of like, oh, if I allow myself to like show up in this similar way, I will assimilate with some of these other, and I don't really want to call them faux gurus, but let's call them like extremely niched down gurus of like, you did one thing or you trained on one thing or you learned one thing, you got really excited about one thing and you're like, okay, I'm a spiritual teacher, I'm a spiritual leader, I'm a spiritual guru. And like you mentioned, with phenomenal marketing skills of like, this is viral on TikTok and I'm able to do here. And we're doing lots of brand partnerships versus a lot of our, not necessarily just elders, but like more practiced in this industry before it was really an industry, and comes to the table with these wide skill sets ready to truly hold space for it. And I think that's something that's missing in a lot of spaces, being able to hold space for someone else during their healing, during their progression. Like the number one thing that I recommend to people when they're like, oh, I want to get into plant medicine, I'm like, please, please, please ask your ceremony leaders if integration is part of this. Because if you're not getting an integration call, if integration is not a focus, I highly recommend you look for someone else who is offering integration, because we can have the most profound of experiences, but without that support to integrate, what are we really doing? We're experiencing and we're enjoying and it's beautiful and it's transformational. But if we can't bring that down into the 3D experience, if we can't allow that to support our humanness and our life, we're kind of like spinning our wheels of like, I'm using ayahuasca or I'm using psilocybin or I'm using this thing, even if it is like meditation or EFT, as a patch, as a crutch, instead of as a way to open me up and help me to realize that like, I am that medicine. I am that vibration. I am the conscious creator. I have access to those things at all moments, not just through this outside thing. So I think getting rid of the resistance and the like feeling that we are limited because we are not, oh, I'm not like a marketing genius on here, or, oh, I'm not viral on TikTok, that like often as we're teaching in other spaces, we're blocking ourselves because we're the only thing that can actually block us. And it is this limitation that we've embedded deeply. And for a lot of us, very quickly, of like, oh, as soon as we start to see that separation in generations of like, oh, they get this better, of like social media is for them and I'm like on borrowed time, or I'm trying to step into a realm that's not for me. I see that block in auric fields a lot, where it's just like, oh, I can only do like up to this, or I'm only good up until this space, or like I can't do reels, or I can't do TikTok, or like stories aren't for me, or like I'm posting and no one's responding. Like those types of limitations are self-imposed, and allowing ourselves to show up in the vulnerability that we teach so often and be forthcoming about that. Like I speak on my social media platform all the time of like, it is definitely stressful. It is painful. It is that mirror that shows me that like I'm looking at vanity metrics and I care about those things, and coming back to the center, coming back to the purpose, coming back to the why, and like allowing that magic to move through you and using the avenues that we have. I have so many spiritual practitioners who are so anti social media. They're like, oh, it's a lower vibration. Oh, I don't want to be on there. It takes so much out of my day. And I get you. Like, I hear you. I understand it. But this is the modern era. Like, the internet is this beautiful thing that allows us to connect with other people. It's how we're using it. And so, for a lot of my clients, we're not consuming. Like, I'm not consuming on Instagram remotely as much as I was when I first started on social media, as like with my own business. Like, my personal business coach asked me the other day, she was like, oh, so like who's doing Facebook ads in a way that feels really aligned for you? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm like, I consume from you and I consume from one other coach. And like, that's pretty much it when it comes to like a more business practice. I was like, so I really don't know who's doing Facebook ads in a way that feels aligned for me. I'm like, I could do that research. I could look at that, but like, I'm not in consumption mode. And that has really, really helped me, that I'm able to create from this place of clarity, from this light pillar in and of myself. And I think that's something that will really serve you and the others that you're speaking to, that like you guys aren't in a place of like social media consumption. You get to show up on social media super authentic, super aligned. And I understand that there are people with these massive followings and it feels daunting, but you and I both know those aligned clients, those aligned souls who are like, ooh, I need that thing. They feel authenticity. Vibration will always speak louder than marketing tricks, than beautiful photos, than this, than that, then I don't care how good your hashtag game is. Authenticity
Mine's
will
great.
always
Doesn't
speak
matter.
will always speak louder. And so often we are focusing more on the quality versus the quantity. So like vanity metrics are great if what your goal is to get these brand partnerships that are paying you to promote products that sometimes you don't even like, maybe you don't even use, versus we're looking for quality of like, I'm sending this message out there. I turn myself into a lighthouse. It's one of my abundance practices that I really like. And I shine this light into the dark, illuminating the path for these aligned clients to find me. Of like, if this mom, dad trauma from 0 to 7 is on your heart, is in your body, is in your energy, is like just attacking your subconscious, I'm beaming my light out for you. I'm showing you the path to find me, and like find me through any way. And I get clients who find me in the craziest ways. One of the reasons why I do so many podcasts and I love them so much is that it gets me in front of a very unique and a very different clientele. And there's just one little thing that I say, or how I say it, or often that I'm swearing, or that I'm like being really honest about shit. And they're like, yes, like I know that you are it for me. And I get people who show up are like, I don't even really know what you do. Like, what do you offer? Like, how do I work with you? Like, how do I pay you and like get something from you? But I know it has to be you. I want it to be you. I feel that connection.
Yes. I have a lot of my clients. I do dream work. So I come to them in their dreams. I go, "Hey, it's time to work with me." I had one today. She's like, "Man, I'm launching my first training course where you can get certified in being a new era facilitator and medicine woman." And she's like, "Yeah, you were in my dreams last night." So I wake up tired. I'm like, "I wonder why." I want to go back to a piece that I want to add something, and just questioning this because, again, I'm in a position where I'm still close enough to, like, I'm 1 year away from being a millennial. So my Facebook, everything looks really good. It's not about that. There is also a cultural belief that we need to heal and that needs to be alchemized around elders, right? Like people don't value elders. We value youth. We value them sexy gals who took the one, took the 3 weeks of yoga and they're like, I'm a guru. And I guess there is a piece of that. I see people valuing youth. My daughter said the other day, this is hilarious. She's 15. She goes, do you get messages from, random guys in your thing? I was like, I don't. She goes, I get a ton because youth is valued, right? Like people see youth and they're just like, "Ding, ding." And I'm wondering how that translates in this work because, like I said, Maggie, this is her art piece. It's kind of wild, but it's one of the seven sisters. Was so in touch with spirit, had more medicine. I mean, she had her 50 years of medicine, and no one knew. They were not. It was now she was in the part of like, I'm not so sure about the social media, getting online, but she, it's just, there's this feeling I get with some of my older friends and clients of like, wow, I have all this medicine. I'm willing to put it out, but people see me as old. And it's so bizarre because old, right, should be like my teacher said, when your beauty fades is when your wisdom will be at its highest on. And, but do people want to look at that? Do they? I don't know. Maybe if I do enough Lighthouse things, but I just feel that grief of I don't want what happened with Maggie to happen to, some of the people I'm working with or me as I get older with this aging piece. I mean, why are we not valuing our elders?
It's on us to make that change. Like we get to see that and identify that. And that's something that like we get to transform, that like that's a belief that has been given to a lot of us. And especially as women, we've been trained and programmed and told and imprinted that like youth is so important and beauty is so important. And like we get to decide if that's a core belief that we want to carry forward. So every time I heal that, every time you heal that, every time we each give that to our children, we give that to our clients, we allow ourselves to connect with, say, for instance, grandmother, grandfather, like grandmother ayahuasca and grandfather mapacho, and we like bring these values and we're talking about it publicly and we're giving this information and sharing this information and being willing to show up vulnerable and open. And I think that's one of the beautiful aspects of this new version of spirituality, is that it's not like, oh, if you don't know, you don't know, or like if you don't have the in, you don't have the in. Like that's one of the things that I really love to shift like in my own work, is that like if you don't know, ask. If you don't know and want to know, tell me. Like I want to share these things. I want to give you like, where did I get that from? Who did I get that from? Where did I hear that first? What did I do to get to that place? And if it's not me being that teacher, like I want to connect you with those elders. I want to support those people and like bring them to the forefront. Like one of my favorite examples of this is the Cacao brand that I work with, Keith's Cacao. And it's like, this man has so much magic and so much medicine and really has done it in such an aligned way. And I'm like, all of us are like, why is this not the most popular cacao brand out there? Like we don't get it. And it's because he keeps to himself. And he's like, I am not going to shout from the rooftops and like tell everyone what like a grand teacher I am. He's like, the people that are on the porch coming to listen to me, those are the people that I'm giving that message. And so many of us have taken it upon ourselves to be like, well, I'm going to put that in a megaphone and tell everybody and get that out there, because not only is the product of such high quality, but the way that you're doing this, the way that you're supporting these peoples and these practices and how you're bringing this to the masses is important. And like when we place our value on that, we get to bring that and elevate that. So that might be part of your massive calling, is shifting that vibration, not only for yourself, but everyone who you come in contact with. And I'd love to help you with that. Let's both do that.
I just have, I'm surrounded by medicine people that just blows my mind how much, and when you talked about that, I've heard a lot of specifically women, like, I can't promote my stuff. I can't, young, old, it doesn't matter what age, like I can't promote my
Women.
stuff. And that's definitely that old witch wound, right? Where we were beheaded. I mean, I can go and remember any of my past lives like that. Like we were beheaded, we were burned, we were drowned. Of course we don't want to be like, guess what I could do?
Yep. It was not safe to be gifted. It was not safe to be intuitive. It was not safe to be a witch, a psychic, powerful, outspoken. It was not safe for us. And we carry that with us. And now some of us have transmuted that to like, oh, it's safe up until this point. Oh, it's safe up until this. Like for me, it's around plant medicines. And like so frequently, I'm like doing these profound practices with plant medicines, or I'm doing like a psilocybin experience and journey, and then I'm channeling for a client. And just a couple weeks ago was the first time that I put that on my story of like, hey guys, this is what I'm doing. Like I do that one-on-one for clients, but I don't address that until you're in a program, until you're like in love with my work. And I was like, this is such a massive part of my personal practice as well as my professional practice. Why am I so scared to put that out there? Oh, the witch wound. Because I'm worried about literally townsfolk with pitchforks and, you know, like Beauty and the Beast. Like I'm worried Gaston is going to come to my door and be like, you did psilocybin, I'm going to behead you. And I'm like, what is this feeling?
Well, think about it. If you watch like the documentary Thrive or anything, if you do get too big, there's still potentiality for that. I mean, I do think that I know I'm super guarded by spirit. Like they're like, you are descendant of Yeshua and Mary Magdalene. You know, you got the magic. I mean, there's thousands of us that are descendants of them, but you're descended from this lineage. There's a protection around that. Like I have a protection, but I imagine that if it was like global wide, like if it was, you know, if I had 1 million followers, like people be like, wait, I mean, we're at the baby beginning of the new era, right? Like we just stepped into it. People thought it was, I mean, it was 2012 where the vibration shifted. Like I felt that shift, but you know, 2020 brought it home. It's like we are now in the dissolving, and those powers that be, the darkness is just like clinging for what it can.
Yep.
I don't know why, but I'm feeling called, those listening out there that resonate with that, call on the protectors. I mean, there are some big Kachina, like obviously I work with Archangel Michael and his legion to keep safe, but there, you know, depending on your heritage, there is safety for that, for expansion, for sure. But that, now that we're talking about that, I'm wondering if that's why things have kind of like went on a mini lull for me, because there is this, the darkness is so prevalent right now. It's interesting. I'm getting all kinds of downloads talking to you. This is
A
fascinating.
lot of, so like one of the things that I feel so deeply for you, and especially the individuals that you're talking about, is that like you do have this protection. And so sometimes it bubbles you and it can pull you back from the forefront of like being on the precipice of being in front of a bunch of people who don't appreciate it, understand it, this and that. But for a lot of us, that is part of getting our work out there to the masses, because we previously were doing this in a different way of like the teacher would find a trusted person to pass this on to, and then it was like hidden and secret. And so that is a vibration that a lot of us still really understand. So when we're often transmuting deeply, and so like especially around the time where you're holding space for your daughter to do that and facilitating that transmutation, it does feel safer to be in a bubble and to pull yourself back from the forefront of like, it doesn't always feel aligned to be like on stories and promoting ourselves and giving our information and like doing the call to actions and these very like 3D things that facilitate our 5D work. But we're used to being in this cocoon or this bubble or this protected space. And often when we are surrounded by guides, by light beings, by whatever legion we feel connected to, we do pull back from being in front of a bigger audience for those things, because it's the way in which we've worked for how long?
Thousands and thousands of years.
This is the first time in human history where we've been able to be in front of that many people. It's so new. It's so, so new. And in comparison to our gifts, like our gifts have been with us for how long? For how many expressions of our consciousness? And this, like being on a public platform, even being on a stage, is still so new for a lot of us in these gifted spaces.
Yeah. Oh, I love the stage. I'm like, give me that mic. I can't
Right?
get back to the mic.
Hear me, people. Yep.
So then there's also the piece, check the time. There's another piece coming up for me around, those spiritual walls that we and contracts to break around. So there's the elderly isn't worthy. We've talked about several, but there's another one about to be spiritual means to be in poverty. And like I've broken the monk contracts. Like I'm
Yep.
like, again, I have access to this dude. I call him Father Time. He's in this big tree of life, and I could go anywhere and see any lifetime. I take my clients to go and, rewire,
Yeah.
reconstruct lifetimes, past, future, whatever. And, I saw these poverty monk ones and I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. So I not only had the ancestral poverty ones, we had to leave dangerous situations and go into poverty in order to survive. But then there's like spirit, and I still hear, I mean, I literally, so the woman who I work with, Dr. J is what me and my students call her. She was like, I've been bringing this topic up. Like, hey, I'd like to have enough to where I feel like the queen that I am. I don't want to get greedy with it. And she's like, ooh, money, corruption, spirituality. Now she's open enough and a wonderful, beautiful, powerful shamanic teacher that she's checked in. She goes, I don't charge for my services. You're meant to. Like you are meant, I can hear your guide say you're meant to.
Yeah.
But
Her
there's
definition of
more,
abundance is so different from ours. So
yeah,
different from ours.
yeah.
When
And
she hears abundance, it's not money, it's not finances. It's literally like I see the riches of the earth. Like I see like her hands in the earth being like these are the things. This is the abundance of like the truly like the fertile ground and the herbs and the things that we grow and the minerals that are in here. Like I see her understanding abundance in that way. But like we experience 3D reality. Like we are humans. I want to eat good food. I want to drink good drinks. I want a 3-person jacuzzi bathtub. And those are not wrong things to want. Like we chose to incarnate in this physical vessel because consciousness doesn't get to eat. Consciousness doesn't get to drink champagne. Consciousness doesn't get to take a bath with my aligned partner and like share these beautiful practices and watch rose petals float in my bath and drop oil that smells like magnolia in there. Like consciousness does not get to experience these things. Consciousness does not get to hear my tingsha's hit together. Consciousness does not get to hold my beautiful pendulum and watch that energy radiate through me as I channel for something. Like it is of divine service for us to be expanded in abundance, and abundance in all ways, not just riches of the earth, not just those minerals and gems and these beautiful things, but also the riches of this 3D reality of like getting on a plane and traveling where you want to go and bringing your medicine. Also, the more expanded that we are, the more we get to choose and the more our trueness gets to show up in that way. The more money I have, the more I can give away. The more money I have, the more flexible I am with my services. That when someone comes to me, like I've got one client who I charge like the silliest little prices to because I'm just like, you are meant for this work. And because I'm at the level that I'm at, I get to do that when I want to, because I'm not gripping so tightly of like, oh, if I don't charge you what I should be charging, then I'm not going to be able to like pay my bills or take care of my kid, that I get to let go of that. Like it does us a service. It does the world, the collective vibration of service for soulpreneurs, for spiritually aligned individuals to be fucking abundant. Because when we have money, we spend money in an aligned way. We make aligned choices. Money is not the root of all evil. Money is not this thing that is going to change who you are. It's not going to transmute your internal programming. It is going to fan your own fire. So if you are a heart-centered, beautiful souled person who is ready to get your message and your service out there to the world, if what you're going to do with money is to better your life, better what you're eating, better like how you're taking care of your body, better your family, better your friends, that does all of us a service. We all get to elevate the collective vibration through abundance. So it's actually doing a disservice to the world, to ourselves, to not live in financial abundance, in addition to abundance of love, and abundance of friendship, and abundance of experience, and abundance of gifts.
oh my gosh, you're good. I'm just going to clap. So I was going to ask her about sacred economy. That was sacred economy. And and investing. Yeah. Cause I would, I know me and my friends, we want to invest in or small companies, organic
Yeah.
things. I mean, when I would have my festivals for my shamanic dance party, I would, collect money for Friends of the Earth. Like, it's little minute
Yeah.
amounts. But yeah, I told her, I was like, I don't see me getting corrupt anytime soon. If I was going to get corrupt, it would have been back when I had a choice to either work on this shadow or to, to give up and to
And
get
it doesn't mean we never have to deal with that. Like there's of course going to be a moment when like you hit this level of abundance where you get to make this choice between like, ooh, this thing or this thing. Like for me, Amazon's one of those things where like Amazon is such a helpful thing in my life, like especially with the pandemic, with the snow. And I'm like, when I get to this level, like I would love to go to a store and not purchase packaging and not do this for the planet. I would love to only support these types of businesses. And like I get to make those intentional decisions in the size and shape that I'm able to right now. But I'm also constantly scripting and journaling and future programming and doing these things that like this is the version of me that I'm stepping into. So as I elevate each financial level, like for instance, investing, like I invest in very specific businesses. The beauty of TikTok is that it's giving us so much information, and I'm obviously getting a ton of this information and I get to make that choice. Like, yeah, I hear about this merger, or yeah, I hear about this Wall Street thing, and I'm like, I get to decide if I'm going to like do that, if I'm going to participate in that. And for me, one of the things that I got to shift right away was like, what am I investing in? Like the stock market to me is a way for me to vector my energy and put my vibration behind a business. So like things that I believe in, I purchase stock in versus like, oh, hey, this one's going to do a sale and it's going to like make a ton of money over here. I'm like, yes, but I don't believe in that business. And I'm in the place where I can make that choice. Whereas like, oh, you know what? I do want to order my groceries in so I don't have to like go to the store. And I get to do that. But I also want to be very conscious of that like, okay, when I get to this level, here are the decisions that I'm making. And that's a part of the why I want to get to that level. It's like, I get to make those shifts. And every time I get a step up and I start to make those shifts, I see the ripple effect. And then it gives me even more vibrational power to continue calling in new levels of abundance because I'm very intentional about what that means for me, my life, my experience, and my expression.
Wow. Well, I didn't even have to ask you about sacred economy. You just said it in such a beautiful way. I'm so grateful we had this call. It was literally the highlight of my day. Yes. So thank you for being part of one of the new era women that are helping shift the old paradigm, the patriarchy, finding that balance between the divine feminine, masculine, and for advocating how to use the intuition over the intellect. I mean, the intellect, it's there, it's great. Like you said, we're working on a small percentage of consciousness. That subconscious intuition and heart is where it's at. I can tell that's where you're at, and you have a beautiful way of sharing. I mean, I'm just so
Thank
impressed by you. I just
you.
I like
Thank you.
so. Is
So
there any
excited
last
for
thoughts you have
your
for?
work. I'm so excited for your work to get out there further and have that light shown on you and just like giving and sharing these gifts and being financially abundant for them. Like one of my favorite affirmations, like my work is of high service and worthy of massive compensation. Like, thank you, Amanda Francis. My work is of high service. What you are doing, what I am doing is of high service to ourselves, to our clients, to the collective, and it is worthy of massive compensation. It is no longer just Wall Street, lawyers, doctors. These things are valuable and important, guys, but so are the spiritual gifts. And it is not wrong to be a spiritual individual and be abundant and live a beautiful life of the luxury that you choose. And we all get to choose and design for ourselves.
Wonderful. Beautiful conclusion there. And thank you. We will be talking again. We will be working together. I've had visions of that mic and that stage, and I have a feeling you have a way to connect me to that. So
Yes, yes, yes.
we will talk soon. I'm going to have Lindsay's information on the podcast, on the YouTube channel, but would you go ahead and just say it verbally, like a way that people can contact you?
Yeah, guys, I spend a decent amount of time on my Instagram, so feel free to pop over, direct message me, let me know what from this episode resonated for you. My handle is Our and R, OURANDARE. I also have a private Facebook group for female identifying soulpreneurs and spiritually curious beings where I share more of these practices and rituals and trainings and programmings. That's going to be facebook.com/group/Our and R. You guys can also check out my one-on-one coaching programs, as well as my digital offerings, workshops, retreats, all the fun things at ourandr.com. So I hope to hear from you guys. I would love, love, love to hear your reaction about how some of these, especially financial and abundant and these lineage things that we are breaking and shifting. And if you're part of this new era and are ready for support and would love someone to fan your flame, I am here for you. Reach out to me.
Yes. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on.